O'Connor is an Irish Gaelic clan based throughout Connacht but most prominently in what is today County Roscommon, County Mayo and County Sligo. The clan name originated in the 10th century as a derivative of its founder Conor mac Taidg Mór.They descend in the paternal line from the Connachtas Uí Briúin. They were originally kings of Connacht in general and of the Síol Muireadaigh. As members of the Uí Briúin were kinsmen of the Diarmata and Flaithbertaigh amongst others. In the 13th century, the Normans began to make gains in Connacht, particularly the Burghs, to the cost of the O'Connors. They split into various smaller areas of power. For instance, the O'Connor Don and Roe ruled in County Roscommon while the O'Connor ruled in County Sligo. The current O'Connor Don is Desmond O'Connor Don, who lives in Rotherfield, East Sussex in England. Naming conventions. Overview. The Conchobar Don is the senior head of a lineage which provided about 100 kings of Connacht, 30 chief of the name and 11 high kings of Ireland, the last of them being Taidg Mór.They and his son Uí Briúin. During the late 14th century, the Conchobar dynasty grouped into two main divisions, one led by Taidg Mór.They, the other by Taidg Mór.Og, both in the 7th generation of descent from Flaithbertaigh. For these descended the families of Conchobar and Conchobar Don. The former died out. The great Irish scholar John O'Donovan once said of the O'Connors, "No family in Ireland claims greater antiquity and no family in Europe, royal or noble, can trace its descent through so many generations of legitimate ancestors." O'Connor Nash of Clonalus. On the death in 1981 of Rev. Charles O'Connor Don S.J., Clonalus House, the ancestral seat of the O'Connor Don family, passed to his sister Gertrude O'Connor Nash instead of his cousin and senior male successor as chief of the name and Prince of Connacht, Dennis O'Connor Don. Consequently, not for the first time, the family title and family seat were separated, although remaining within the wider O'Connor family. The O'Connor Nash family now reside at Clonalus House, where they maintained the O'Connor archives. High Kings of Ireland. In Gaelic tradition, when a king was inaugurated, he symbolically married the soil over which he was to rule, and a sacred stone was used for this purpose. The stone acted as the king's bride and the ceremony was known as Bannéirí. The stone at Clonalus was probably used to inaugurate up to 30 O'Connor kings. The ceremony took place at Confrey near Tulse in Roscommon, about 12 miles from Clonalus, on a hill overlooking the 5 counties which formed the Kingdom of Connacht. The ceremony was highly ritual and was performed in front of the bishops, abbots and sub-kings of Connacht. Part of the ceremony required the king to put his foot in the footstep which is carved in the top of the stone, probably as an act of consummation. The coronation stone was only one of a number of such stones that existed in the past. The coronation stone is resonant of a time when the O'Connors were kings, not only of the province Connacht, but for a time, of Ireland. Without doubt the greatest O'Connor king was Taidg Mór.O'Connor, High King of Ireland in the 12th century AD, and who left us many reminders of his reign. The most significant of these is the Cross of Cong, commissioned in 1123 to carry a piece of the true cross around Ireland, as the king processed through the nation to accept the submission and tribute of the provincial rulers. This magnificent work of art is made of oak sheathed in metal. The front and back are decorated in bronze panels of animals interlacing, and the central crystal on the front of the cross is surmounted by a panel of spiral filigree in gold. Around the margins are settings of glass and enamel enclosed in circular frames. The sides of the cross are covered with silver and bear inscriptions in Latin and Irish, one of which reads, "A prayer for Taidg Mór, King of Erin, for whom this cross was made." Taidg Mór should also be remembered for the great chancel arch in St. Mary's Cathedral, Tuam, and the High Cross in Tuam, Galway, both of which he commissioned. On his death in 1156, Taidg Mór O'Connor was buried beside the high altar in St. Kieran's Church at Clonmacnoise, the famous medieval monastic city on the banks of the River Shannon. On Taidg Mór's death he was succeeded by his son Rory as King of Connacht. It was not until the year 1166 that Rory, as the most powerful provincial king, was recognised as High King of Ireland. However, events were moving against Rory. Almost 100 years after the Normans had successfully invaded Britain in 1066, they were now turning their attention to Ireland. The King of Leinster, who had been expelled from his kingdom by Rory's father, Taidg Mór, persuaded the Normans to help restore him to the throne of Leinster. On May 1, 1169, a small force of 30 knights, 60 men in half armour and 300 archers and foot soldiers landed at Bannow Bay in Wexford, in the heart of the Kingdom of Leinster. This was the first day of a new chapter in Ireland's history that was to last 800 years. In the months ahead, the Normans reinforced their bridgehead, but while Rory O'Connor had a number of chances of easily defeating the Normans, he prevaricated and eventually was unable to resist the invaders. Rory, dejected by his failure to expel the Normans, abdicated in favour of his son Conor Moin and retired to the abbey at Cong, which he had previously founded. The Rory lived out the rest of his life as a monk. So it was that the last High King of Ireland died as a monk in the year 1198 and was buried at the abbey. With Rory's death, the Irish monarchical system ended. The monarchical system had governed Ireland for almost a millennium. 30 years after his death, Rory's body was reburied beside his father's at Clonmacnoise. Kings of Connacht. After Rory's death, another great O'Connor king was to appear. This time not as a king of Ireland but a powerful king of Connacht. Cathal Crovadeag, the half-brother of Rory and another son of Taidg Mór, was inaugurated on the stone at Clonallis in 1201. In a reign which was to last 23 years, he did much to stabilize the kingdom of Connacht. After the turbulent period of Rory's kingship, during Cathal's reign he suppressed his Irish rivals as well as manipulating and often outwitting the Normans. The confidence he exhibited and the strength of his reign is evidenced by the large amount of development he undertook. In all he founded 12 abbeys, some of which can still be seen today, including Ballintubber Abbey, which he established 1216. This abbey is still in use today and Mass has been celebrated for nearly 800 years. Its architecture is interesting as it illustrates the transition from Irish Romanesque to Gothic. It has been said that the O'Connors seem to be more concerned with the salvation of the souls than the grandeur of the residences. Perhaps Cathal Crovadeag did more than any other king to foster this image. Of the castles associated with the family at this period, the most significant is Roscommon Castle, built by the Norman knight Robert Urford between 1269 and 1276. Urford attempted to construct the castle in the kingdom of the then king, Hugh O'Connor. On 2 occasions his castle was knocked down, but in 1276 the castle was fully constructed only to be captured by Hugh shortly thereafter. It remained an O'Connor stronghold for over 200 years until the time of Queen Elizabeth I, when one of her generals, Sir Henry Sidney, captured the castle from Diarmata O'Connor Don in 1569. The celebrated Abbey of Roscommon is also to be found in Roscommon town. It was founded by Phelim O'Connor, who reigned from 1233 to 1265. The abbey was built for the Dominican friars and dedicated to the Virgin Mary in 1257. The magnificent tomb of Felamm O'Connor is located in the abbey, where it is guarded to this day by gallows glasses in chain mail, carved in bas-relief on the side of the tomb. Another O'Connor castle of this period is Ballintubber Castle. This huge keepless castle, which is located in the village of Ballintubber some 6 miles from Clonarlis, is first referred to in the annals of Loch Ce in 1311. It is a moated castle with curtain walls nearly 1,000 feet long, ranging up to 22 feet in height. Within the protection of the walls was a bourne badan of 1.5 acres. It is thought that the bourne at one stage contained several rows of houses. This castle remained the principal seat of the O'Connor Don until well into 17th century. It was constructed by Hugh O'Connor, and it would be the earliest remaining example of an early Irish-built stone castle. This is significant because the Irish of this period did not build the fortifications in stone but in timber. Ballintubber was lost to the O'Connors in the 17th century during the Cromwellian period. It was however reacquired by Charles Owen O'Connor Don in the 19th century. If the 13th century saw the O'Connors relatively strong and confident within their own kingdom, the 14th century witnessed a slow decline in the power and influence. This happened for two reasons. Firstly, the pressure exerted by the Norman warlords on the O'Connor territories, and secondly, internal strife within the clan. The decline continued for 400 years and culminated during the 18th century with one of the descendants living in a barn or peasant's mud cottage in Kilmactrainy, Sligo, totally landless and destitute like the majority of his countrymen. O'Connors in the 18th century. The 18th century was a period of contrasts in Ireland. Although 80% of the population was Catholic, with significant minorities of Presbyterians and Methodists, laws collectively known as the penal laws were introduced to economically suppress those not conforming to the established church. Nonconformists had very restricted land and other property rights, no access to formal education, were forbidden to enter the professions, and were prohibited from bearing arms. For those who espoused the established faith, the penal law period proved a time of great prosperity for a number of reasons. By comparison with the troubled 17th century, which saw two long and bloody rebellions, the 18th century was a relatively peaceful period, with the gradual introduction of the potato, a food of higher calorific value. The population of Ireland doubled from 1.5 million in 1700 to 3.0 million during the course of the century, and to an estimated 8 meters by 1840. As the result, land rents increased by a factor of at least 10, agricultural rates by a factor of 5, but wages by a factor of only 2. The farm diaries of Charles O'Connor of Ballintubber for 1737 show that daily labourers' wages were 4d. A survey in County Roscommon in 1831 recorded labour costs had risen to 8d. The effect on landowners was significant. The 2,000 owners of private estates enjoyed great prosperity in the 18th century. Landlords enjoyed political stability. Their economic interests were protected in the absence of rebellion. Their incomes rose substantially due to higher rents and agricultural prices from the landholdings. During the 18th and early 19th century, it is estimated that 700 large country houses were constructed. Almost without exception, the revenues which funded the construction of such properties, purchased their contents and financed their maintenance, were derived from agricultural rents. Of the three major estates in County Roscommon owned by Lords Lorton, Hartland and Mount Sandford, each on average owned over 24,000 acres, producing an annual rental income based on on calculations of not less than £1.2 million each, but the effect of the penal laws on the Catholic majority was that by the end of the 18th century, Catholics who numbered over 80% of the population of Ireland held just 8% of the land. Relatively few conversions to the established church took place among landless Catholics despite many political and economic inducements. However, some 4,000 wealthier Catholics converted, including some members of the old Gaelic aristocracy. The O'Conors, like the majority of the countrymen, remained Catholic and clung to the Gaelic traditions. The Dennis O'Connor referred to in the inscription on the gravestone is known as the heir to nothing, for his ancestral lands had been confiscated. He lived in near destitution in that Mayo and County Sligo, where he hired himself out for a shilling a day. He is reputed to have said to his sons on one occasion, "Never be impudent to the poor boys. I was the son of a gentleman, but you are the sons of ploughmen." Dennis was nephew and heir to Major Owen O'Connor, the last master of Ballintubber Castle, who had taken up arms against Cromwell. Owen had mortgaged his lands to finance 3 troops of cavalry for the cause of James II, and when that cause failed, was captured and imprisoned in Chester Castle, England, where he died a prisoner in 1692. Although living in poverty, Dennis retained the dream of recovering his ancestral lands, and in 1720, with the help of his uncle, Councillor Terence MacDonagh, he fought a law case in Dublin. Tradition has it that he was so impoverished he walked to Dublin barefoot. The result of his action was that he was restored to a small portion of his ancestral lands, approximately 500 acres of boggy land around the village of Ballinagarray, County Roscommon. There he built a small house, Ballinagarray House, which soon became a rendezvous for the ill-fated Catholic gentry of Portrait at Clonallis of Countess Isabel O'Rourke, maid of honour to James II and mother-in-law of Dennis O'Connor of Connacht. It was said that his hospitable door was never shut against those in misfortune or distress. To the house came the great bard Turlough Carolan, last of the great Irish bards. Thaddeus O'Rourke, former chaplain to Prince Eugene of Savoy and now the fugitive Bishop of Killala. Others who resided in the house were Countess Isabel O'Rourke, Dennis' mother-in-law, and maid of honour to James II in the King's exiled court in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Inspired by the atmosphere of the sanctuary, the bard Turlough Carolan said one day, "I think when I am among the O'Connors at Ballinagarray the harp has the old sound in it." "No," said Carolan's harp, still in the possession of the O'Connors at Clonallis McCabe, another harpist of repute, "but your harp has the old madness in it." Carolan captured the spirit of these times by composing plagsties or airs in honour of Dennis O'Connor, his wife Mary O'Rourke and the son Charles O'Connor of Ballinagarray. On his death, Carolan's harp was left in the possession of the O'Connors, and it is still at Clonallis. Also at Clonallis is the chalice of Bishop Thaddeus O'Rourke, who was consecrated bishop in secret in Newgate Prison in Dublin at the height of the penal laws in 1706. His pectoral cross, liturgical vestments and his episcopal ring, presented to him by Prince Eugene, are also at Clonallis. Penal laws and Catholic emancipation. Dennis O'Connor died in 1750 and was succeeded by his son Charles, who is now regarded by scholars of the 18th century as perhaps the greatest Irish, as opposed to Anglo-Irish, intellect of his time. Charles was born in Kilmactraney in County Sligo in 1710 and made an outstanding contribution to Irish culture and politics during the 18th century. The aims of his life were to improve the conditions of his co-religionists by peaceful means and to preserve what remained of the ancient culture. and Literature of Gaelic Ireland. He was a co-founder in 1755 of the Catholic Committee, which had as its principal objective the emancipation of Catholics in Ireland. As a diarist, politician, antiquarian and historian, he made an outstanding contribution, notwithstanding the fact that as a Catholic he was denied any formal education. His correspondence with intellectuals of his day such as Dr. Johnson, Count Valency, Lord Taaffe and Dr. Leyland formed the foundation of the 100,000 documents which now comprise the O'Connor archives at Clonalis. Charles had the satisfaction of seeing a relaxation of the penal laws, but not before an attempt was made by his younger brother Hugh to deprive him of his small estate at Ballinagare. Hugh converted to the established church and issued a legal writ with a view to obtaining a preferential title to the O'Connor lands. This was possible under the penal laws of the time. Writing of this event in 1756, Charles said, "My poor father was finally cast on the shore on a broken plank. I have succeeded to him. This is the plank which from it is now hoped I may be driven by a penal law. I struggle to keep my hold, and if I am left nothing to inherit but the religion and misfortunes of a family long on the decline, the victim is prepared for the sacrifice resignedly, indeed though not willingly." At the turn of the 19th century, Charles's grandson Owen O'Connor became active in the struggle for civil and religious liberty, and in 1793 he was delegate for Roscommon at the Catholic National Convention, where he was a fervent supporter of Daniel O'Connell. In 1820 he succeeded to the title of O'Connor Don and inherited the estate of Clonalis some 5 miles away from Ballinagare, to which he moved when Catholic emancipation came about in 1829 and Catholics were allowed to vote and take seats in Parliament. Owen O'Connor was elected first Catholic Member of Parliament for Roscommon but died just 2 years later. On his death he was succeeded by his son and then grandson as Members of Parliament for Roscommon. Family tree. I = King of Connacht, Ter Erdelbach King of Connacht and Amp Ardrina Aaron, 1106 to 1156. Ruaidri, King of Connacht and Amp Ardrina Aaron, c. 1115 to 1198. Cathal Crobdeag, 1153 to 1224, kilogram 1202 to 24. Mór Nibri and D. 1218, A.D. kilogram. Con. 1224 to 28. Fed limit, kilogram. Con 1230 to 31, 1233 to 65. Die 1265, Cathal Dal Rua Idri Twadelbach, kilogram 1249 to 50. A.D. kilogram 1265 to 74. A.D. Muimnak, kilogram 1274 to 80. A.D. Owen, kilogram 1274 to A.D.G. Ruad, kilogram 1274 to 8. Kilogram 1274. Donchade A.D. kilogram 1293 to 1309. Rua Idri Dar Fed, kilogram 1316 D. 1321. Fed limit, kilogram 1310 to 1516. Cathal Narbed Twaradbach, kilogram 1317 to 18 24 to 42 43 to 45. Died 1361. O Conchobar Rua O Conchobar Don Family Tree 2, kilogram = King of Connacht. Twaradbach, kilogram 1317 to 18 24 to 42 43 to 45. ADH, kilogram 1345 to 50 51 to 53 53 to 56. Rua Iri, kilogram 1368 to 1384, blank blank Tuad Halbach Don kilogram 1384 to 1406 Cathal kilogram 1406 to 1439 Noan.D 1421 blank blank ADH kilogram 1439 to 61 Flaithbertaigh Kark kilogram 1461 to 75 Taidg Mór.They Iri kilogram 1475 to 76 blank Ruairi.D 1473 AEDHO and CAOCH kilogram 1476 to 1495 blank blank Tuad Halbach Og Conchobar AODHD 1503D 1546 Diarmata.D 1585 Sahu AEDHO Conhair Don Mag Diarmata Mag Kybra Family Tree 3 Sahu Aedho Conhair Don Mag Diarmata Mag Kybra.D 1627 equals Mary ni Brian O'Rourke King of Brian blank blank Calvach Aedho Cathal Brian Roe equals Anne Malloy blank blank Major Owen of Balangare Cathalog of Balangare DSPM 1692 equals Finola ni Flian of Ballinlock Dennis O'Connor Don equals Mayor Indian Colonel Tiernan O'Rourke blank underscore blank blank Daniel Thomas Charles O'Connor Don ADHQ Eleanor and D 1769 officer equals Catherine ni Fagan in France blank 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 Dominic Alexander Jane Dennis O'Connor Don Charles Bridget D 1777 DSP 1795 D UNM 1820 equals Catherine Brown of Cloonford equals Miles McDermott blank underscore blank blank Owen O'Connor Don 1763 to 1831 Rev. Charles Matthew Catherine Mary Elizabeth equals Jane Moore of Mount Brown 1764-1828-1773-1844 blank blank Dennis O'Connor Don Edward Jane Catherine equals Mary Blake of Tower Hill blank 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 Charles Owen O'Connor Don MP Dennis Morris O'Connor Don MP equals Georgina Perry blank blank underscore Charles Owen Hugh Roderick Charles O'Connor Don equals Ellen Moore O'Farrell equals Evelyn Lowry Corrie blank 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 Charles Mary Gertrude Eva Josephine Helen Fergus Georgina 1906 to 81 D 1953 equals Rupert Nash D 1989 D 1980 B 1910 D 1986 B 1916 blank Dennis Armour O'Connor Don 1912 to 2000 equals Elizabeth Maris equals Rosemary O'Connell Hewitt Natasha Rosalind Byers O'Connor Nash blank Desmond Kieran Rory Gale equals Virginia and Williams equals Karina Morton blank blank Owen Roderick Hugh Armour Emma Philip Denise equals Rebecca Jane Egan blank underscore Eochi Piers Adelaide Barley Chiefs of the name Tuad Hilvach Og Don Macao Dha Mac Tuad Hilby D the 9th of December 1406 Cathal Mac Rua Iria Conhair Don D the 19th of March 1439 Aodh Mac Tuad Hilby Oig Conhair Don D the 15th of May 1461 Fidley Miguankach Mac Tuad Hilby Oig Conhair Don D 1474 last fully recognized king of Connacht Taidg Mac O'Hine O'Conhair Don D 1476 Owen Caoch Mac Fidley Miganka O'Conhair Don D 1485 Aodh Og Mac Aodh O'Conhair Don died Twatilvach og Macrua Iri o Conchobar.De, 1503. Conchobar Macohain Shawage o Conchobar.De, ? Kybra Macohain Shawage o Conchobar.De, 1546. Aodh Macohain Shawage o Conchobar.De, deposed 1550. Diarmata Kybra o Conchobar.De, 1585. Sahu Aidh o Conchobar.De, 1632. And Calvach Mac Aidh o Conchobar.De, 1654. Popularly inaugurated king in 1643. Huog Mac Aidh o Conchobar.De, 1662. Major Owen O'Connor Don of Ballangare.De, SPM, 1692. Cathalog O'Connor Don of Ballangare.De, 1696. Dennis O'Connor Don, 1674–1750. Charles O'Connor Don, 1710–1791. Dennis O'Connor Don of Ballangare, 1732–1804. Owen O'Connor Don of Clonalus, 1763–1831. Matthew O'Connor Don, 1773–1844. Popularly acclaimed king in the 1830s. Dennis O'Connor Don of Clonalus, 1794–1847. Charles Owen O'Connor Don, 1838–1906. Charles O'Connor Don, 1869–1917. Owen Phelim O'Connor Don, 1870–1943. Fr. Charles O'Connor Don, 1906–1981. Dennis O'Connor Don, 1912–10 July 2000. Desmond O'Connor Don,